Thank you for having me. Can everyone hear me clearly? Yeah? Okay. So first of all, thank you, Ms. Anita, for the introduction. It is very elaborate, but yeah, I'll try and keep up to it. Okay. Guys, as she said, I'm Mohit Motani. I have been in the robotics industry for the past 6 years professionally, but unprofessionally as an interest and as a minimizing human effort correctly. So a machine also minimizes human effort. You must have seen that in 3 Idiots movie as well, that it minimizes human efforts. If you look at the trend of human evolution, we moved from doing things ourselves, breaking stones, to starting to develop machines that do that for us, starting to develop these computer systems that are able to do the same job but in a lot more intelligent manner. Now what? Now where do we head? What's the next big step in human evolution? The last that we remember is information technology. First of all, the world got a lot smaller when the internet came across. You were able to gain access to people that you weren't able to traditionally. It took a lot of time to call up someone in the United States, and if you remember in the 90s, I'm not sure if many of you guys were not born around that time, but because of my area of research, in the 90s it used to cost 128 minutes to speak for 128 rupees to speak for 1 minute in the United States. How much does it cost right now when you guys have Facebook and all sorts of social media platforms? Negligible. Doesn't cost anything to communicate with everyone. So through the 90s, minimizing human effort correctly. So a machine also minimizes human effort. You must have seen that in 3 Idiots movie as well, that it minimizes human efforts. If you look at the trend of human evolution, we moved from doing things ourselves, breaking stones, to starting to develop machines that do that for us, starting to develop these computer systems that are able to do the same job but in a lot more intelligent manner. Now what? Now where do we head? What's the next big step in human evolution? The last that we remember is information technology. First of all, the world got a lot smaller when the internet came across. You were able to gain access to people that you weren't able to traditionally. It took a lot of time to call up someone in the United States, and if you remember in the 90s, I'm not sure if many of you guys were not born around that time, but because of my area of research, in the 90s it used to cost 128 minutes to speak for 128 rupees to speak for 1 minute in the United States. How much does it cost right now when you guys have Facebook and all sorts of social media platforms? Negligible. Doesn't cost anything to communicate with everyone. So through the 90s, you don't need to be at a particular place to connect to anybody in the world. So that was the entire decade that made the world more accessible in your palms. Now we're in this decade, from 2010 to 2020. What's going to happen? We're constantly going to be encouraged to think that, can I help this lady sitting in Sri Lanka in a small village? Can I help her sitting over here when she doesn't? That's the meaning of robotics. So yes, it's a machine that eases our lives and eases our efforts, but to what extent? We've had machines that are computers, that are industrial machines. Now we're reaching this stage where without you moving from your desk, from where. So robot basically is initiated with its own concept. We keep receiving requests on a daily basis. Hey, I want a robot to come into my home, do my dishes, clean my laundry. I'm sure that's everyone's dream. We don't like doing those chores. Sure, the robot exists. There are already robots out there that are in their initial concept phase and the prototype phase that are able to do this. You give it the next 3 years, and like the lab, it's very tangible. Have any of you all come across these 3 laws of robotics? Isaac Asimov, the guy who made the movie I, Robot, Will Smith. You guys have seen that. So it was based on a book by Isaac Asimov called I, Robot, and that's what the movie was based on. There are 3 laws of robotics that also the World Robotics Council and the World Ethical Robotics Council also promotes these laws. Because you can have a robot tomorrow that can harm you. If you're making something that intelligent, how do you prevent it from harming you? These 3 laws, when coded into a robot, makes any robot unharmful to you, and you can have a robot that is 6 feet tall, 6.5 feet tall, do your job for you, but it will never harm you or anybody around you. It's very simple. It's never harm human. Did everybody get his question? So he's saying, can a robot differentiate between another robot and a human being? And if it was supposed to prevent the human being from any damage, is it also supposed to protect another robot from causing damage? Have I got your question correct? Yeah. Yes, there are a variety of sensors. robots are able to communicate between themselves. Robots are able to know if the other guy is a robot or not a robot. You have protocols in place. For example, we have developed this robot where any human being that comes less than 1 meter close to the robot, and the robot has a knife in its hand. It's a household robot. We developed this for a client in Sweden, and it's a household robot. So the robot comes into your home. It's a humanoid robot. It does the chores for you. It cuts vegetables for you. It cooks for you. It does your laundry. It does all those things. But if a human being, if it has a knife in its hand or anything sharp, the robot knows if it's holding something sharp or it's not holding something sharp. If it has something sharp in its hand, it stops. So you have a different array of sensors. You have temperature sensors, you have heart rate scanners, you have retina scanners, a combination of those sensors. You have visual inspection systems. We integrate our face recognition system. We have certain proprietary softwares that we use. Face recognition system knows it will cross-check your data with your Facebook data on the internet, know your name, and know that whether you're an owner of the house, not the owner of the house. How do you know if you're not supposed to be here? So those robots that you're talking about are called Android robots. Android robots are robots that look as close to human being as possible. The objective over here of having a robot in every home is exactly not that, because you're not solving any particular objective by making a robot that looks just like you. The objective is to assist you, like he said, to make a machine that makes your life a lot easier. Let's say, for example, you graduate from here and you become a finance professional. Are you planning to take a specialization after this? Yeah. What specialization? Lucky on that. Okay, so let's say you decide to enter the finance world and you want to become a finance professional. Out of the 12 hours or 14 hours you work in a day, you want to work as focused as possible. The robot is going to help you do that. You don't want to spend 2 hours in a day working on your non-core tasks, like, let's say, filling up entries in an HR software, or you don't want to go home and cook the food for you, plus you don't want to have food on a daily basis ordered in. The robot will assist you in doing those things. So that's the objective of having a robot with you. You're not making a robot so that it looks like you and it looks like a human being. That's not what we would get into as well. Of course, there are many power supplies and softwares to perform a task. A robot basically, like the human being, gets inputs from the sensors. We have 5 sensors: touch, smell, taste, vision, and auditory. Right? So those are our sensors, and that's how we function and that's how we respond. In the same way, robots can have up to from 2 sensors starting to going up to 150, 200 sensors if it has that kind of provision in the body. So sensors act as inputs in any system, any machine that you take up, and once that input is received, it depends on the company, the manufacturer, how they're able to manipulate that input. That's where the term manipulators come in. So manipulators are typically your arms, your legs, your head, things that are interacting with the outside world. If you shake your head, you know it means something. If you extend your arm towards a particular human being, you know it means something. So those are the kind of manipulations you're doing with the sensors, the inputs that you get from the sensors. Power supplies, I'm sure you guys have seen the movie Iron Man, you know, that whole facade about having this small power supply. All those things don't exist. You don't have a power supply that's small. That still exists today. But yes, power supply is very important. If you have a robot that cannot work more than 3 hours or 3.5 hours or 4 hours, you have an unstable robot. So these systems are required to make an extremely stable system, a stable power supply, something that can work underwater. Specialize in developing software and hardware that can get a robot from an unknown environment back into a known environment. You can leave the robot in the middle of a desert and without any GPS, without any kind of protocols that is interacting with the external world, just like us human beings. If you didn't have a phone on you, if you didn't have anything on you, and you were left somewhere in the middle of the desert, using your own instincts and your own understanding over the past 20 years of your life, you'd find your way, or you'd try to find your way to a known environment. The robot is able to do the same thing as well, and it's able to do that. Yeah. Now, Japan today has been using a lot of disability robots. Japan has a huge old population at this point, and due to the Western culture creeping in as well, the kids stay somewhere else, the parents stay somewhere else. So they have these things called disability robots. It gets them to get out of bed, move around in their house, remind them of when they have to take their medicines, when they have to talk to their children. Everything is done. So with the kind of services that we do provide and the variety of inputs we have competition from different companies, but there's no one single company that is able to provide. The project of 500 robots across the north railway stations. The robot moves around by itself automatically, comes in front of you, stops, opens its lid. If you have some dirt to throw inside, you can throw the dirt inside. It says thank you and walks away. We've even gone a step further, integrated with the government of India's Clean India movement. Now it has a screen. This is the older version, but the new robot has a screen over here on the top. You log into your Facebook account, let your friends know that, look, I have picked up a piece of dirt from the ground and I've put it in this dustbin and I've used the dustbin, and you get points from the government of India. So if you collect some amount of points, you actually start getting rewards and gifts for keeping your own neighborhood clean. That's the kind of initiatives we're taking with the government of India. This is the budgie robot I was talking to you about. It's a 5 feet tall robot with a basket inside it. So it's one of those, for all of us who are very, it doesn't need to go to that extent of technicality at this point. We have the ability of keeping one robot that is only dry and one robot that is only wet, but we don't have two different dustbins inside this robot. It makes it too big for it to move around. So the robot itself weighs about 200 kgs. And one of the intelligent features we've put in this robot is no one can ever steal this robot. You know, that's a problem in India and railway platforms, where you leave something, it might just get stolen away in your mind. So no one can steal this robot because it has intelligent sensors. If you try and pick it up from the floor, the owner of the robot gets an SMS. You have your railway superintendent or your railway contractor. He gets an SMS saying that someone's trying to steal your robot, please do something about it. So once that is sent immediately, he can reach on site, try and avoid it. The robot switches off automatically. So only the guy who has the keys to switch on the artificial arms and artificial limbs being installed. These are called exoskeletons that enhance a human being's capability to lift or perform tasks 10 times more than what our own natural ability is. This to a certain extent is frowned upon because the defense has started using, the defense of the United States have started using this in enhancing their own ability, and they're able to now lift 100 kgs to 120 kgs of weight on their back without any additional effort. But it's an area that it's very helpful to the handicapped, but now, when you talk about a robot entering your home and starting to do all these things, there's a company called Honda, and Honda outsources some of their software to us. So we develop some of their software for making the robot more and more intelligent. They have an array of 180 sensors around every single part of its arms, its feet, its thighs, the center torso, everything. They have an array of 182 sensors to such an extent that the robot knows that when it holds an egg in its hand, how much pressure to apply so that the egg does not crack. That we face in terms of what happens if the robot becomes self-aware. In order for the robot to become self-aware in your neural scheme, you know, if you want to make a robot to become self-aware, you have to build a network of neurons, neural networks around it, or fuzzy logic. These are the two kind of basic science principles we use to build a particular robot. In order for the robot to become self-aware by the council. This is called a social robot. Again, something that people in your homes, old people, they need company. A lot of people are living lonely lives instead of having a pet, and you don't know what kind of mood that pet is going to be in. It's a robotic that as well. These are the humanoid robots I was talking to you about, where it's very hard to differentiate which one's human and which one's the robot. This is something that we want to actively avoid. We don't indulge in things like this. So this is something we want to show you, that what do you avoid in developing robots, and if tomorrow you want a robot for your home, what are the things you want to avoid? This is definitely going to create chaos. I was just speaking to Raymond before we started that there's a statistic that shows in the Western world about more than 70% of internet users prefer the digital world over the real world. And that is a scary situation we're entering. If you start preferring the digital world and the digital world acts as per your expectations, you're not going to want to live in the real world, and that's creating a huge divide in the existence of the human race, where you're going to want to be more robotic and you're going to want to use more augmented technologies. Now the challenge with these drone robots was, you know, in the video it always looks very hunky-dory and the drone is traveling perfectly well. What happens if a bird hits the drone? What happens if it hits a tree? What happens to the drone? Your package is at risk, your drone is at risk as well. We further developed the caged drone concept. Now the entire drone is packed inside a cage, and now like an insect or like a mosquito, it's meant to bump into objects. So let it bump as much as possible. It actually had a good advantage because this robot, we've taken this. So we made this system further intelligent as well. Let's say you wanted to clean your house in a very systematic manner. Yeah, band kar do. This was something we developed for Tokyo, a very simple application. They had problems with having traffic officers even standing on the road and monitoring the traffic. So we just developed a small traffic robot for them that does the job.